Hello, it's been quite a while before I made a video for the next tool of self-awareness. For those of you who have been watching the videos that I've been making in the past few weeks, thank you very much. I'm getting feedback from different people who are telling me that, oh, I'm discovering my attachment style. Your videos are helping me to want to be a better person. And honestly, that warms my heart because the goal is to make authentic living a lifestyle. So, if we can have as many people who are able to be themselves, be authentic, live in their most authentic versions, then for me, that's all. I've done my part. So, part of the journey is to give us tools that help us to get to know who we are and to live our most authentic lifestyle. So we started with tools of self-awareness, one of them being journaling, which is my favorite. I will keep telling you, journaling is a superpower tool. You can never go wrong with it. Any great person, any successful person will tell you that you need to have a journal, you need to write. And then we went to personality tests, which is the journey that I've taken to get to a place of self-awareness. I started to do personality tests, go to understand myself from, these tests, these different personality tests. Please go watch the video that I've done on that. And then after we talked about attachment theory, which has taken up a couple of videos because we needed to understand what attachment theory is, the different types of attachment styles that exist, how they manifest, and ways for you to um, understand and deal with whichever attachment style that you test and get from your results. Okay, so from there, we want to talk about this next tool of self-awareness called forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is such a powerful tool of self-awareness, and I'm going to talk about it and show you how. Now, for those of you who have been following, we've talked about attachment styles. What we haven't talked about is attachment wounds. So when you're born as a child, ideally, you have no attachment. You're just born into a family. Then you start to develop an attachment to the people, the caregivers that you have, the people around you. And it is from that relationship that you're able to develop an attachment style. Assuming you were born in any other family, you would still be attached to people in those to the people in that family. So attachment styles are really based on how you relate to or attach to your caregivers. When you start to get attached to this caregiver, you start to trust them, you love them, and you basically accept them for who they are. And then something happens in your life where that trust is betrayed, or that love is broken, or that you're just rejected. Maybe it's like a rejection of sorts, or that's how you interpret it as a child, and then you develop an attachment wound. Attachment wounds develop from unrequited love from your attachment figures or the person you're attached to. Attachment wounds may develop if your trust has been broken, if attachment wounds may develop if you're not safe where you are, or if the person that you thought was your attachment figure does not keep you safe. Attachment wounds are developed when your attachment figure is not consistent, and so you start to develop a lot of doubt and mixed feelings, and so on and so forth. So these attachment wounds definitely they're like actual wounds. The only way to treat them, the only way you can treat an attachment wound is to go back to where it started, where you got the wound from, and then forgive. You heard me. The only way you can treat an attachment wound is to go back to where it developed, or to go back to that time, to go back to revisit that moment when it developed, and then process the emotions, process the feeling that you felt at that time, and then allow yourself, give yourself permission to forgive. And once you do that, once you're able to go back, revisit your attachment wounds, revisit the times when you were hurt, revisit the moments where you felt this is when I developed this wound. This is exactly that moment that I was hurt. you will start to heal. I'll give you an example of myself. I remember when I was journaling and trying to understand my attachment style, and I am writing and I'm trying to remember, okay, at what point did I start to feel maybe insecure or ambivalent about or anxious? At what point did I start to feel this way? And I remember getting back a memory from my childhood. For those who have been following, I told you that personally, I developed an anxious ambivalent attachment, which is anxious preoccupied attachment style. It's an insecure attachment style from my child development stages because I was still a baby when my sister was born. My sister and I, we call ourselves twins, but we are just months apart. When I was 3 months old, my mother conceived, and that's how she gave birth to my beautiful sister Belinda. But at that point, when Belinda was born, I was no longer the baby, and yet I still was feeling like the baby. And so I felt that my mother had rejected me and chosen. I was confused. Ambivalent means on and off, like there's a sort of confusion. So I was confused on the whole relationship, the whole dynamic between my mother, who is a primary attachment figure. Usually, mothers are primary attachment figures and fathers are secondary attachment figures. But then we also have other secondary attachment figures like aunts, uncles, and grandparents or elder siblings. So at that point, I'm confused because my primary attachment figure is no longer um, giving me the attention and love and that I need, and now it's all going to this other baby. And so that's how I end up developing an insecure attachment style. So when I'm journaling and trying to go back to that place where I developed, my mind, when you're going through this process, your mind will bring back memories. It will bring back people in your life, people who hurt you or situations where you were hurt. And sometimes why you need to trust your mind to help you through this process is because sometimes you forget. Sometimes it's subconscious and you consciously ignore it. Sometimes we are hurt and we consciously ignore things that hurt us. And, like, like, don't make it a big deal, then you move on. Yeah. So you want to work with your mind through this process and with your journal. So write down and ask your mind, remind me, take me back to where this attachment once started. So for my case, I remember my mind taking me back, bringing back a memory from my childhood. My mother used to come back from work like early, like around 5, like that time when your mom comes back from work. So she would come back, and then me and my sister, my baby sister, Belinda, we would run, would be so excited, mommy, mommy, mommy. Then we're running, we go, we hug her. But when she'd come back, she would lie on her bed. And so I should lie on her bed. I would run very quickly and sleep right in front of her because I knew that if I sleep right in front of her, she would then be able to, like, cuddle me. Like, she'd put her hand around me and cuddle me. So everyone wanted to be at the front, like while she's cuddling you. So because I've run very quickly before Belinda comes, when Belinda would come, she would start crying. She would say, Brenda has taken my place. And then my mom would say, Brenda, for you, you're a big girl. Go to the, like, come to this side at the back. So because she's obviously, when you're lying, you're facing one side, right? So then Belinda would be the one to be at the front and they cuddle her. Then for me, I'm at the back, at the back, like, okay, where her back is, and I'm trying to hold on to her. I'm trying to hold on to her, and that memory came back to me, and it was so painful. It was so painful. I remember I cried so much, like, there's so much to release just in that single memory because I had never internalized how much of a struggle it was to me as a child in that moment, like how I was sort of like getting the leftover, the breadcrumb, or I was trying to hold on to it because the exact memory was me. Because this is an adult and you're a child, so you're struggling to hold on to them. It's like you're struggling to be part of the whole. Anyway, yeah. So for me, that was the memory that came back for me, and that's how I realized that I started to interpret love in that way, that love, you have to fight for love, or you have to struggle for love. you have to, like, it's not that easy, or it shouldn't be that easy. If it's so easy, it's like, it's not familiar for you. So something like that, like for me at that point, that's how I start to interpret that. And that was the wound. Like for me, that was the most evident wound. And so I had to release it a lot. And I remember picking up the phone and calling my mom and telling her about like everything. And she said, I don't understand. Other people are focused on the future. You're focusing on the past. Why? I said, because mommy, that's the only way to heal. You have to go back to the source. You have to go back to where it started for you to heal. And I'm so glad that I went through that process. It was so painful because, again, there are all these other incidences that you probably will get back in terms of memory. But for me, that stood out. I remember so well that stood out in terms of showing me where my attachment wound was, and showing me how I interpreted um, a lot of the relationships after that. It's like you're just struggling to be seen and loved, and to just have a place. And so I had to work on that, but I also had to forgive. I remember I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself, but I also had to forgive my mom, because in that moment I could see why I was very angry as a child. Was like super angry, because there are all these emotions you can't understand and you can't explain, and you just, like, you're a kid, you can't interpret how you feel like an adult, or you can't explain it. So you're probably just like throwing a tantrum, or being extremely stubborn, or doing things for attention, because now you realize you can't get the attention and love that you need in the healthy way. I remember right after my sister was born, and I think after assessing the dynamic, I developed asthma. And I read somewhere that a lot of kids who fall sick a lot are actually coping. Like, a lot of sickness is like a coping mechanism, especially like that consistent, or sickness that's like um not like the once in a while, like it's recurring. It sometimes can be a coping mechanism for children, in because that is the only way they can get attention and love from you. And indeed, every time I'd get an asthma attack, I would get to sleep in my parents' bed. I would get all their love and attention. I would get to see them, like, spend more time together. So sometimes, you start to develop unhealthy ways to cope, or to get the attention of your caregiver or your attachment figure. And so that's just my story, but there are many other ways these attachment styles manifest for different people. Yeah, so I had to go back to that place, and I had to forgive. And I think the hardest part was forgiving myself, because as a child, you tend to blame yourself, you tend to criticize yourself, you tend to judge yourself, you tend to be really, really hard on yourself for feeling what you're feeling. And so you end up caging your inner child. Like, every time you feel a certain way, every time that love was betrayed, that trust was broken, every time you were not accepted for who you are, every time your emotions were not validated as a child, guess who you punished? Your inner child. Like, so you grow up as an adult who has caged the inner child, like, like, don't do that, don't throw a tantrum, don't complain. And so your inner child is like angry, very angry. So you sort of have to go back and apologize to that child, and sort of like start to be the attachment figure that you didn't get as a child, and start to parent your young self when you are younger. Start to reparent that young child in you, that inner child in you, and then forgive your attachment figures, your parents, your caretakers. And even though I've used this example, which is compared to most scenarios that children with insecure attachment styles go through, this might probably not even be like, oh, a big deal, because there are also kids who are, like I said, there are kids who are abandoned, like the parents just disappear. And so a lot of these kids grow up questioning their worth and questioning their value in this world, and wondering why their parents do not choose them. So we need to now go back to the source of these attachment wounds, and then forgive our attachment figures, and forgive ourselves. And yeah, then we can now start the journey when we have liberated our minds. I'll just talk about ways we can do this. The reason why I started with journaling to begin with is because a lot of these processes are easier when you're journaling. This is the process I go through. I will write down every memory or every person that I feel was an attachment figure who hurt me. Because again, it may not just be, let's say, your mom. It could have been an aunt or an uncle or a sister, big sister or a big brother, or someone who was done like they hurt you in a way that it created a wound, an attachment wound for you. Yeah. So I will write down all these people and then I will allow myself to forgive them, and I will speak into that place and I'll say, look, I forgive you. I take back my power. I do not allow you to influence how I feel anymore. You are free to go. I release you and I ask you to be free. And so in that process, you are speaking into these people, into your life, and you're able to release and heal your attachment wound. That's one of the ways. So forgiveness is such a powerful tool that it helps you to be aware of where and when you developed the attachment wounds or you started to feel a certain way. Now, I need to say something that we need to all be aware of. Because attachment styles can develop at any stage of our lives, not just child development stages. Even as an adult, if you're attached to someone and that person hurts you, they could easily influence your attachment style after. That's why you hear stories that someone was dating, maybe they dated someone for long, then the other person maybe broke up with them or cheated on them, and they didn't trust again. Why? Because that trust was broken and that wound developed, that attachment wound developed, and they have not taken time to go back there to heal it. And the only way you're able to heal is if you actually feel the emotion. I've told you before that emotions are energy in motion. That means that if you feel that emotion, that you do not process it or release it, it is not felt. If you have not felt it, actually, you could have the emotion, but you don't feel it and don't release it. It is still in your system. You have kept it because pain not felt is pain kept. Any emotion not felt is an emotion kept. So a lot of times, because we're in a very busy world, in a very capitalistic world, we are not able to sit with ourselves and with our emotions. We tend to keep a lot of emotions. And any emotion that is not felt and is kept is stored in the body, creating disease in your life. Half of these diseases that we have are coming from that place of unprocessed emotions. They start from there and then they manifest as physical ailments, dis-ease in the body. So that is why forgiveness still is the biggest and most powerful tool of self-awareness and living a very authentic lifestyle. Practice forgiveness. You want it to be part of your day-to-day. When Jesus in the Bible was asked about, how many times should I forgive when someone wrongs me? He said 70 times, 70 times. That's a very big number if you had to forgive. Half of the people are not even forgiving that number of times in their lifetimes. Why? Because we are failing to understand the impact of not forgiving, like on our lives and on our bodies and on our minds. So, me, I'm here to tell you that if there's anything you want to do, if there's any reason you want to take up forgiveness, let it be as a tool of self awareness for yourself, even if you're not doing it for other people. You do not need to talk to the person directly or to hear it from them or an apology from them or to comfort them to forgive. Start operating as an energy being. If emotions are energy in motion, that means as an energy being, you're able to transmit that energy that you felt when the wound was created and turn it into a different emotion. You are able to dissolve those energetic ties because every time you are unable to forgive, you create an energy tie with someone. Again, I told you, let's go back a little bit, that the only person that has the ability to hurt you is a person that you love, the person that you trust, the person that you are attached to. Anyone that you're not attached to cannot hurt you. That's for a fact. So that means every time you are hurt by someone, it's because you are attached to them, it's because there's an energetic connection. And so if you are hurt and you don't take time to dissolve that energetic connection, no matter the distance, no matter the time, if you have not forgiven, that energy connection is still there. And you want to use your journal and this process of forgiveness, this practice of forgiveness to dissolve those energetic ties. Dissolve them for your sake. Do the same for those that you have wronged. It's possible that there are people that you have also wronged and you've not asked for forgiveness. Start by listing them down. List down all the stuff that you feel in your heart and they will come to you. List them down and ask for their forgiveness. Do it. Energetically, those energy ties will dissolve. And then when you get a chance to meet them, in fact, it will then create space for you to be able to actually have the conversations if you're able to. Even if you're not able to meet them in person or have a conversation with these people, forgiveness will still take place because it is an emotion. So it's energy in motion. We are energy beings. You can dissolve any energetic ties that no longer serve you. The other thing is you need to trust your mind with this process. Your mind is your helper. Your mind is your support system. You need to trust that your mind wants the best for you. And so that when you ask your mind, take me back to the source, take me back to where it all started, show me where it hurts the most, and you allow your mind to do that, you will be able to do it. You will be able to go back to the source. You will be able to see where it hurts the most, and you'll be able to feel and release that pain, and you'll be able to forgive. So start using forgiveness as a tool of self-awareness with your journal, alongside your journal. Write down and do it on a daily. Like in a day, do not allow yourself to go to bed with unforgiveness in your heart, with issues with people. Release them energetically, like release them. So I release you from my energy field. I call back my power and I return yours, so that you are not harboring unforgiveness in your life. But also, the more you practice forgiveness, the more empathetic you become, the more compassionate you become, the more emotionally intelligent you become. But that also means the more you're getting to understand yourself, you get to understand your triggers, you get to understand what triggers you, you get to understand your wounds, and you get to become more equipped to deal with different circumstances and different people. And they say that you're more powerful when you know like your weaknesses. So imagine if you know where your wounds are, no one can poke them. The problem is most of us are moving around unaware of where the wounds are and where they started. And so at any one chance or point, if someone pokes that wound, it's crazy. Like you're not going to survive, you're not going to make it through, you're going to be disorganized and disoriented. But once you're aware of the wounds, no one can poke them because they are now healed. So if anything, today, choose forgiveness as a tool of self awareness and forgive those who have hurt you, forgive those that you have hurt, but above all, forgive yourself because you deserve it, because you are worthy of love, you're worthy of acceptance, and you're worthy of living the most authentic version of your life. So if there's anything else that you need me to elaborate on this topic, please feel free to share. But today, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I hope that you go and learn to and practice to forgive.